So it's finally time to bring all of them and start the preparation process, and we are going to bring them all and assign different textures to them. So I'm going to start with the beach kit. Let me bring it, and here it is. And because it's a bit heavy, it might take a bit of time. Okay, I'm importing that. And the whole point of this is that we assign different texture sets to them so that the UVs get separated when we texture them inside Substance Painter. And this baking preparation is one of the most important in the whole process. Okay, they got imported, but there seems that there's a bit of a scaling problem since this one is the mannequin and these ones also need to be rescaled. So as I have noticed, these ones are something like 100 times smaller than they should be. So I'm going to hit a scale and write down 100. Okay, this is the size that they should be, and these are 8-meter pieces, and compared to the size of the mannequin, which is roughly 2 meters, we see that everything is perfect and fine. Okay, now one of the most important parts in the baking preparation is selecting the two corresponding pieces and then assigning different materials to them. So let's select these two, and using the material utility, I'm going to give them a material. So let's start with these 8-meter pieces. Okay, and hit Shift Q, and I'm going to call them beach underscore 8 by 8. Okay, so that I know where this one belongs to. And if you have noticed, the pivot of them is off, and the pivot is in the center of the world. And if I take this one and try to rotate it, I'm going to get this offset effect. So I'm going to select them and bring the pivot in the center of both meshes. And this makes sure that the pivot is in the center and the manipulation is as well a bit easier. So let's give this one the same material. I'm going to give it beach underscore 8 by 8 underscore 02. So this one is a variation, and to not be confused by this one. So again, select this one and bring the pivot in the center of them. And I'm going to do the same thing for all of these as well. So let's select them, select these two, and this one is a 4 by 4 piece. So let's make it beach underscore 4 by 4 underscore 01. Okay, and give it the pivot as well. Now the pivot is in the center, and now let's select these two and give it 02. Okay, and pivoting, and give this one 03. No, they didn't get renamed. 03, and this one is so that Substance recognizes these as different texture sets so that it can create different textures for each one. Okay, and let's go for this one, and this one also we need to call it beach underscore 1 by 1 underscore 01. Okay, and the pivot also in the center, and it's time for this one 02, and this one belongs to the 2 by 2 kit. Let me see if I have corrected the pivot on this one. Okay, let's select this one, beach underscore 2 by 2 underscore 01. And this one 02. Okay, and make sure that both the high poly and low poly are carrying the same material. And give this one its pivot and pivot on this one as well. So I'm going to connect these pieces together. So first, let's give them the material beach underscore stone. Okay, now both high poly and low poly are carrying the same material, and I can safely take this mannequin and remove it. And now there's a bit of work to do, and that is renaming the low polys to have the consistent naming convention so that later on we can easily export them into Unreal. Okay, let's take the low polys first. And if you want to see which one is the low poly, you select this one and compare the polygons against the lower one, and we see that this one is the low poly, and you see amount of polygon, and if I select it, you see it has a lot more polygons. So this one is the low poly, and you can of course bring on the statistics, and you see this one is the low poly piece. So I'm going to rename them based on their material. So let's give this one SM underscore beach underscore 4x4 underscore 3. So that's an easy fix that we need to do. Okay, let's take this one. This one is the high poly and this one is the low poly. You can easily select them and using the statistics understand which one is the high poly and low poly. Okay, and I'm going to add only the static mesh underscore before all of them. Okay, let's select this. This is the high poly and this is the low poly. And I'm going to first, before renaming this, I'm going to go to edit mode and hit P and separate by loose parts so that we have different parts here. So I'm going to rename this static mesh underscore beach underscore stone underscore 01. Okay, I'm copying this name and duplicating the name and only changing the variation number because I do not want all of these to be the same. Okay, this one as the last one, and finally we have these pieces to take care of. We have these two medium pieces. This is high poly and this is low poly. Okay, and one thing that I've forgot is that these have UVs and we UV them before doing the works on them, and I'm really happy about that. Okay, this one is as well getting renamed as the sixth piece, and I'm going to give them their pivot since the pivot is off in the center. So let's select all of the high polys, low polys, excuse me, and give them the pivot. Okay, and this one as the last one. So this one is the high poly and this one the low poly, and I'm getting the material name and rename, add a static mesh underscore and give that name so that it's a bit descriptive, and later on in Unreal Engine we can know which material should be assigned to where. Okay, this one. And for the high poly, we really do not need to rename it because there's nothing to be concerned about. There's nothing intersecting or any pieces unnecessary. So let's take this one as well, rename, and this one needs to be renamed to 1x1. Okay, I'm only adding a static mesh before that. Okay, static mesh underscore, and for this one I'm giving it 02. Since if I give it 01, it's getting a wrong name. So this one as well. This one is the low poly, and even the low poly has a lot of details thanks to nanite. And this one is going to be v34 static mesh. Okay, and now this one needs to be renamed as well. Copy the name of the material and only add the static mesh before it. And this naming convention is really crucial. It might take a bit of time, but it's really worth it. So we have only these pieces left. Okay, this piece is the low poly. And let's copy the material and add a static mesh underline before that. And finally the last piece. And after this one we will take care of the rock kit as well. And a static mesh. Okay, now all of them have been renamed. Of course we can go ahead and rename the high poly, but that is not really important. We can take these. Okay, now we have all of the low polys in here, 15 pieces, and I count them, it's alright, and there's nothing missing here. Okay, I'm going to select them and put them into a new group called low poly, and take these ones that we didn't select. Okay, and this is supposed to be the high poly kit. Let me go to the first view and try to view all of them, and this is the high poly kit. You see it has 7 million polygons, and hit M to create a new collection and call it high poly, and I'm going to export them separately. And I did the renaming because I wanted to be able to uncheck this visibility and be able to select them only. Okay, I'm taking this one is the low poly, and let's select all of them and hit export as FBX, and select objects, limit to selected object, and call it beach underscore low. Okay, export and wait so that it gets exported. Okay, got finished, and now deselect all of them, hide this and bring this one up. And since this one is really beefy, it might take a bit longer, but that's a process that we have to do, and call this one high. Okay, export. Okay, all of them got exported, and I took a backup from this scene, and I'm going to take all of these and delete them. And now it's time to bring the rock kit as well. So select it, this is the rock kit, and hit import. And I'll be back when the importing process is done. Okay, now I remembered that I forgot to UV the beach kit. Of course, in most cases the UVs are alright, but a couple of pieces needed to be fixed, and a bit of shading smooth needed to be done. Okay, these were imported as well, and I'm taking them, and they need to be scaled by 100. So let's do that, and then move to previous part to fix the issues. Okay, save the scene. So here's the previous scene, and on the high poly side we really do not need to do anything. We need to just confirm some things in the low poly, and the first one is I'm taking these, and since all of them belong to the same texture set, I'm going to bake them in the same 0 to 1 UV space. So let's bring the UV editor up and select all of these. Let's select them all. Okay, and now you see all of the UVs have been corrected. I only need to hit UV packer. Let's set this one to 1, and put the mode to high quality to bake all of these into 0 to 1 UV space. Okay, now I believe the texture densities are right as well. Let's go to UV toolkit and assign a texture set to them and inspect them, and all of the squares should be the same size no matter how big or small the object is. Okay, it's alright. And let's go back a step to give them the same material that they had. And now let's hit a couple of times to see if we can get a better one instead. Okay, looks like it's the best that we can do. So let's go and do others as well. For this one, I believe the UVs are alright here. The UVs are in 0 to 1 UV space. But to make sure that everything is alright, I'm taking all of them and scale them in the center just a bit to give it a bit of buffer zone. Okay, it's done. For this one as well, let's take all of them and it's alright as well. I'm going to only give it a bit of buffer zone and all of these as well, because we didn't change the default UV because these were simple planes and we really had nothing to do with the UVs. But on the 8x8 piece, we need to correct the UV as well. And all the fixes that we need to do is bringing that into 0 to 1 UV space, nothing more. Okay, select all of them and bring it in just a bit. Okay, this one needs to really come in because we scaled it 2 times more. So I'm scaling it in the center to bring it into 0 to 1 space. Okay, just like this, and this one as well for the last one. Just scale it and bring it in. Okay, and this is the fix. We really do not need to do anything else. Let me bring it up. Okay, as far as the baking goes, for the preparation process, it's done. And now I'm selecting these and exporting them. And overwrite the previous file. Okay, I'm selecting this low poly and limit selected and hit export. Okay, this is the rock kit, and as you see, it's a lot heavier than that, totally having something like 17 million polygons. And okay, we're going to take care of that. So, and the first thing, again, I'm going to take every individual one, give its own pivot, and rename the material to whatever I want. For example, let me create a material for this one. I'm going to call it rock layered underscore big. Okay, and let's take the low poly one, and you see it's pretty obvious in the form of the geometry. So I'm taking this one and rename a static mesh underscore and paste the material name. Okay, and now this is the second one. We gave it pivot, and now let's select it, give it a new material and call it rock layered medium. Okay, and copy the material and add the name to the low poly one. And I'm always adding this SM underscore to the meshes so that they are a lot easier to find later on. So this one is the most expensive one. Let's apply the pivot and give this the material rock blocky underscore big. Okay, and copy the name and assign it to the low poly. And even the low poly on this one is fairly high poly. We have something like 2 millions of polygons, which is huge. And you see, even without applying any normal map, this low poly is looking pretty good. Let's change the name of it, static mesh underscore that. And let's go back, just a couple more remaining. So let's call this, first give it the material, rock blocky, medium, and okay. And rename the low poly, which is this one, to static mesh underscore the name of the material, okay, and give its pivot as well. So let's go back and assign a pivot to both of them. And let's see about the pivot of this one. Okay, it's all right. And for this one, rock blocky, a small, and then select the low poly, which is this one. All right, static mesh, and paste the material name. Okay, just these two remaining. And then we export these. So let's select this, bring the pivot in, and let's select this one and bring the pivot on this one as well. I'm using the quick pivot to place the pivot in the center of this because I've found out that these being centered would give me a better result in controlling them. So give the material rock blocky tiny underscore 01 and rename the low poly to a static mesh underscore the name of the material. And this naming convention really helps us later on in identifying the textures and giving them proper material and finding material instances or anything that will help us, okay? And for this one as well, let's bring the pivot in here. And this one is pivot as well. And 02 on this one. And for the low poly as well, I'm going to set the name static mesh and give the material. Okay, everything on here is done as well. And now I'm going to select these. We have 7 pieces, which is all right. And I'm going to bring them into the low poly collection and select these ones and bring them into the high poly collection. Okay, and now I can toggle them on and off. And you see even the low poly kit is being consist of something like 4 million polygons. So I'm going to bring this back and only select this low poly kit. Okay, all right. And I'm going to export this. So let's name it rock kit underscore low. So the reason that I'm exporting this separate to the beach is that the substance file would get really heavy and really hard to control because they are going to have a lot of baking information and we will get a lot of errors. So I decided to keep the rocks the same in one file and keep the beach files in one file again. Okay, let's export this one. And again, since this one is quite beefy, it's going to take a bit of time, even for the low poly. And the high poly is worse as well because it's 14 million polygons and it might take quite time to be exported. So this one exported, and now let's go and deselect this, hide the low poly, and select these. Okay, and now I'm going to export this, and this one is going to take a lot of time, but it's fine. So let's go for FBX and give this one rocket underscore high. Okay, I'm going to export and pause the recording as well, and I'll be back when the exporting is done. So the mesh has got imported and I have to go to MYUE, and in here with the default settings I'm going to select the low poly mesh, and as always I'm going to start with the beach. So select it and then hit OK, and this is what we got. And let's check the textures to see what we have here. Okay, we have this one separated, this one separated as well. I'm inspecting them one by one to see if there's anything wrong. So this one is alright, and now we are ready to bake the textures. And to bake the textures, let's visualize all of them. And first, every time that I'm trying to bake something, I start with the normal map. So let's go to texture set settings, and it doesn't matter which one really you select. All you need to do is deselecting all of these and check the normal, and in here select your high poly. And if you're going to bake these ones on top of themselves, you want to use this one. But since we're going to bring the high poly, I bring the high poly from here. Okay, and for the resolution, let's temporarily set it to 2K because I'm going to have a fast bake on all of them. So with the default settings, I'm going to hit bake selected textures, because if I hit it, it's going to bake the normal map for all of them. Okay, you see it's going to bake the normal for all of them, and I'm going to pause the video and we get back to you when the baking is done. So it's done, and now I want to hit B to go to the baking and to the normal section. Okay, and now you see each one of them has the normal bake to them, and it means that everything is working fine in terms of selecting the material, if there's everything intersecting or not, or if there's anything working. Okay, all of them now are having their normals and they work pretty good. There are some issues, but that really doesn't matter because this mesh is so small that it's not going to be seen ever. So this one is baking as well, and it means that we have done the pre-baking process in Blender perfectly fine. And now for bakings, I'm going to bake one by one and save. Or if you have enough capacity on your C drive, you can bake them all together. But for the baking, I'm going to go to each texture set, for example on this one, bake, and now I'm going to activate world space normals, AO curvature, position and thickness, and I'm going to bring the output size to 4K and anti-aliasing to 4x4 as well. And now I'm not going to hit this bake selected textures. I'm going to bake one by one because now I'm a bit limited on my C drive, and I'm going to bake each texture set separately, and the process is the same. I'm going to hit this, and now it's going to bake one texture map for me, and the baking is done. And now I can cycle through different baking modes to see that the maps have been done. Okay, and now I can safely go to the next one and start baking the rock pieces as well. And when I made sure that everything has been baked, we start the texturing process. And again, I'm going to create a new file, and with everything set at default, make sure that the normal map is OpenGL and this compute tangent, a space per fragment, is on for Unreal Engine. So now let's select the rock kid low and create a project. And since the scene is so heavy, it's going to take a bit to load. and everything is fine here. Of course, you can hit if F3 or F1 to visualize the UVs as well, to make sure that they have UVs turned on. So this one separated, this one as well has the UVs, and this one has the UVs as well. This one looks like there's a problem in here because I set these two to have the same texture, but I separated the material. And there's not a problem really. I can, after creating the texture files, I can show you a method to combine these two as well. So let's go for this one. It's working all right. And this one as well, the UVs are in place, and this one. Okay, everything is working fine except for that, which we will take care of later on. So this is the high poly file, and let's select these two, and I'm going to select this one first, which is closer to this medium one, and take the material and select this one, and select this one as the last. Control and L, and we want to copy the material. It's the link materials. Okay, after that, if I select them, now both of these have the same material. This is for the high poly, and now let's export the high poly, and later on we'll take care of the low poly as well. So let's go for high and export. Okay, that exported, and now let's take care of the low poly. And this is the low poly file, and again I'm going to select this. It's the material 2, and select this one as the last, and hit Control and L and link materials. And now all of these have been united as well. Let me go to the material, and you see both of them are now sharing the same material. Okay, now I'm taking this and export so that the problems get fixed. Okay, and this is our substance file, and I'm going to replace it. Instead of creating a new project, I'm going to replace the file. So I'm going to the project configuration, and for the file in here, I'm going to select this new one that we created with the materials applied. Okay, the same ones. Now these two materials got applied. If I select this one and hit select only, you see these two are now sharing the same texture set. And if I bring the UVs up, you see the UVs are right in their place. Okay, it's perfectly fine. And this one has been deleted. We can really leave it off because it's not getting used. Okay, now the problem is fine. And now what I'm going to do is baking a pretty simple normal map on all of them to see if that everything is working all right or not. So let's disable all of them, put the normal map, put the resolution to 2K, and from here select rock high poly. Leave everything as default and bake selected texture so that it bakes the normal map for all of them. So the normal bake got done, and now all of them have some normal map baked into them. Okay, now I made sure that everything is working fine. Now it's time to save the project and go and bake the other maps as well. And I'm going to use the same procedure. I'm going to select them one by one and bake every map possible. And then make sure that everything is alright. We start the texturing process. Finally. Okay, select all of them, put this one to 4K and anti-aliasing to 4x4. And I'm going to bake them, and I'll be back when the baking is done. Okay, the baking on these ones are done as well, and we can see that the baking is taking place. And all of the maps are being viewed in here, and everything has baked perfectly. And now we're ready to move on to the texturing session. And I'm going to start from this beach kit, and then after doing that we'll move for the rock one as well. So let me isolate all of them, or no, let's start with the bigger one. I'm going to start with these two big ones. So let's hide all of them but this one. Okay, and now let's select it, and now in layer session we're able to do the painting and all kinds of things that we need to. So I'm going to shrink this because I do not need this for now, and we're going to have a close look at the references as well, because if you look at the references and have a cohesive collection of reference, you will have easier time picking up colors and things like that. And I'm going to pick up the colors from these images that I got from textures.com. and I have this one to see the transitions and things like that. Okay, and let's go on and start creating. For the first one, I'm going to go for the big shapes. So let's disable all of the things, put the color and roughness. And you know the sand is going to be pretty rough. So we're going to dial in a rough value. Okay, something like this. And now for the color, let's pick up from this. Okay, or let me see what I can do with this one. Now that one was better. I'm going to pick up the color from this. Okay, and pick up from something in middle, in between. Okay, and this is the first one, and now we're going to layer on top of layer to create the effect that we want. And as always, we're going to go from big, medium to small. So let's now create the big shapes. So for the color and roughness, let's give it a bit of rougher color, and for the color, let me pick up one of these darker ones. Okay, and now I'm selecting this layer, add a black mask, and add a fill layer. Okay, and now I'm going to select this one, copy it, so that later on I'm able to bring this and only bring the fill layer. Okay, and now let's go to the procedurals and let's look for something like sand to see what it has to offer. Now looks like it doesn't have anything, so let's go for procedurals and try to pick from these. These are good values. Okay, and now you already see that it started to do a bit of color variation, but this is too much really. I do not want a lot of color noise in there. So let's go for the grunge map. Let's make the tiling to 2. Okay, and now I'm going to bring the balance down so that we have a bit of color swatches here and there for a bit of darker color of sand. Okay, this one is all right. And now let's add another one for the color. Let me go for something pretty huge. Okay, this one. And I'm copying this layer so that every time I paint this and I'm able to visualize what the color is doing. So let's go to the fill layer, and again in procedurals I'm going to select this. Okay, let's zoom out, and the color is overall too strong, and I'm going to make it a bit smaller using the tiling, and of course the tiling needs to be fixed. Okay, let's bring it down just a bit, and I'm going to try to wash out a bit of this effect using another fill. I'm going to bring another procedural and try to subtract that from that. So let's take this one and put the mode to multiply. Yeah, the multiply is doing a great job. Or let me come in here and put the tiling to 1. Okay, this is all right. And now for the color, I'm going to go pick something lighter a bit. I'm going to pick some of these lighter patches that we see in here. Okay, and now manually in here, let's go to a bit lighter patches. Okay, this one is great for some variation in color. Okay, this one is all right. And now let's go and add more. Of course, since this one is a bit tricky on places which is a bit lower, for example, in these areas, we need a darker color to cheat the diffuse map to think that really it's darker in here. And it's a good hack to do. So let's go and bring the color, and in here in this fill I'm going to bring the ambient occlusions. And let me see where we are. This is beach 8 by 8. And in here, look for 8 by 8, and you see this. This is the really the ambient occlusion bake of this one that we have. So let's select it. And of course the mask is now too strong. Let me visit the mask, and we want the mask to be inverted because on these darker areas I want to be white. So let's go in here and add the levels and invert the mask. Okay, now in darker parts we have the color that we want. You see the color has been collected in darker parts, and let's drag it out to make the effect a bit stronger. And to make sure that we wash out from these lighter parts, we make this one something like this. Okay, and now in these darker parts we have this shade, and I'm going to select this, and using this color picker, pick from these darker sides as well. And this is what we are getting here, and I'm going to make it pretty dark. Okay, now we have a bit more depth into the color. Okay, let's see the mask, if I can manipulate the mask more. Okay, let's make it something like this, and now we have more color variation in here. Okay, on darker parts and lighter parts as well. But this is doing good. And now let's bring the another color, and on this one I'm going to bring the curvature map. So let's look for 8 by 8, and now for the mask I'm going to bring the curvature map. Okay, this is the mask now. This is the mask, and we need to manipulate it to get the best out of it. So I'm going to bring levels, and let's invert it. Let's see, let's do some manipulations to see what we get. Of course, I really do not want a lot of contrast in this. And let's invert again. Looks like this one is better. And try to bring this one up to isolate more from the effect. Okay, now let's go and give it another color. For example, we can go darker to add a bit of darker value to this, or we can go lighter. Let me see which one works better. I believe going lighter will do a lot better. And now let's go to base color, and this is what we're getting in the base color, and looks like we need to go a lot more into creating this, and we need to add a lot more details. And when we made sure that everything is fine, we're going to create a smart mask from this and apply it to all others as well, with some manipulations relative to each part. Okay, now let's add another level, and in here I'm going to use one of the procedurals. Let's go for procedurals, and later on, after doing all of things, I'm going to use these black and white spots to add, you see, a lot of dirt swatches in here, which are a lot tiny. I'm going to use this, but later on top of all of the things. So now I'm going to use the procedurals to see what I can come up with. Okay, just try to add different swatches of color and make the color changes as well. Okay, pretty good. So let's start to add more. And it's all about using procedurals to create the layering effect that you really want from this. Okay, this one is looking good, but let's invert it. Okay, and it's totally too strong. Let's just do something like this. And for the color, let's pick up from one of these areas. Okay, and now let's go for other ones as well. But overall, we need a lot more detail in this. So let's bring the layer and call this sharpen, and I'm going to make it pass through and keep it on top of the layers. So make it pass through and add a filter, and in the filter select sharpen so that it adds another level of detail into this. It's too strong, let's bring it down. You see, without it it's really blurred, but trying to using that, it adds another layer of realism and detail into this. And I'm going to keep it on top of everything. So bring the layer again. For the mask, let's use one of these procedurals. And let's pick the color. Now let's go for another color. This one could be alright, okay? A bit of brownish color into it. And now I'm adding medium swatches. I added the big ones and now I'm adding mediums, and then later on I go and add the smaller ones as well. So just bear with me until we go there. So this is the base color and this is the roughness map, and the sand is pretty rough if you know. So let's add some other ones as well. Just go through the procedural and look and see what you get. And these procedurals are really powerful. Every time you try to use them, you get a different result. And every time I use these, no matter what I'm creating, if it's a hard surface, if it's organic, if it's a kit like this for landscape, all of these are going to get the best results every time. They are pretty powerful. Okay, again, a good one. And after we've done these procedurals, we go and bring the smart masks as well to take use some of the baked mesh maps as well. So let's see what we have here. Just try to look. And let's pick up the color, and then we'll decide what we're going to do with the color, with the mask. Okay, this one washes the whole effect. I do not want to be so strong, so let's go for the mask and bring the balance down. We want just a bit, not so much. Okay, now let's go and again add medium details. Okay, just see what procedurals work and what not. For example, this one might work. Okay, let's add color to it. And let's make it whiter a bit. And also the roughness, let's give it a bit of variation. Okay, we are seeing the effect. Let's see before and after. You see, among all of those dark swatches, this one is doing alright and doing a great thing. So let's again go for medium details, and I'm continuing this until I'm happy with the base color. So just see what these do and try to select some of them. And this one is alright as well. It's adding a good digital effect. So I'm not going to do this for the base color, but this is leaky paint. Let me have the name and delete this layer and instead bring that one. And search for leaky and use this leaky paint. Yeah, this one is. And let's give it a color and then decide on what type of mask we're going to use on this. Okay, let's make it a bit lighter, and we really do not want this to be so strong because it washes the whole dark parts that we added here. Let's just add a tiny bit. Yeah, these ones are alright. And now I'm going to add those fine details. Let me select them, and I'm going to use the black and white noises. So let's go for procedurals, and in here I'm going to use these ones. Okay, let's use this. And overall, I feel like this one needs to tile a lot. By a lot, I mean so much. So let's change the balance a bit. And I'm not going to give this one a huge color. The first thing that I'm going to add is the height. And by using that, you see, we are adding a fine level of detail of height into this. Let's bring it up just a tiny bit. And now in close-ups, it's reading a lot better. But overall, we need to make the tiling and hide it. Okay, let's give it a color first. And now it's more sand-like, and this is really what makes it a bit like sand. And let's make it rougher. And let's see the mask. Of course, the mask needs something in conjunction. I want to make this one a bit more high resolution. So let's just use this balance and add a contrast. Okay, I lost a bit of progress, and there's nothing really hurts more than that. Okay, let's bring that, add a black mask, and bring a fill layer and make the color reddish and copy this one. And now I'm going to add those small swatches of sand. So let's go here and try to select one of these procedurals. Now let's select this one instead and tile it so much and give it a color. And I'm going to give it a light color. Okay, and now bring the roughness, make it something like this, and the thing that helps us get there is the height. So let's, for the height, bring it up, and it's doing a good job already. But without the tiling, it really looks like a bit of fabric. So let's go in here, and I'm going to select the other one. I'm going to select this number 3. It was better. So tile 128 times and bring the balance down and just give some swatches and bring the contrast up. Okay, it's now working a lot better. And now I need to do something. Okay, come in here, just add a bit of procedural. add a fill and bring one of these lesser obvious procedurals. I really do not want to take a lot of information from this. Okay, let's take this and try to multiply this one. And now let's look at the effect. And now this is where we are getting the effect. Okay, I'm happy with it. And now I feel like I need to give it a bit of more result and make the mask on these parts stronger. Okay, now it's really looking like the sand. And we need to add yet another layer as well. So let's copy this one again and bring it, but for the procedural, I'm going to put it into triplanar. Okay, and now we have this gizmo that we can use to move the effect to other place as well. So I'm going to make it go on some other parts as well. Okay, this is the sand effect that I'm wanting from this. Let's give it just a bit of another color. Okay, this is it. And now I'm going to give it those smart masks. So let's bring this, and I'm going to use these smart masks as well to make it localized on the mesh. Okay, just save it. And adding so much procedurals, although it makes it look beautiful and look good in every scenario, but without adding these smart masks, it really lacks something. It gives characteristic to the whole thing. So I'm going to come here and create a folder here and use the procedurals and these masks and put them in here. Let me call this one masking. And I'm doing this because I want this to be beneath these two sand layers. I do not want all of these to wash these. So I'm going to bring these in here. So the first one, I'm going to, let's delete the effect, bring the fill layer and make the color something more visible. For example, something like red as always. So I'm going to select this and you see the sand is on top no matter what we do. Okay, now let's start to pick up from these smart masks and paint them to see what we get. And this is really based on the geometry, not based on some random procedurals. We are getting this for the geometry. And the mission is to go and select some parts and give some colors to them. Okay, and this one could be a lighter color. Let's select from here and disable the height and give it a lighter color. Okay, alright. Now let's add another one and let's disable the height channel. And I'm trying different masks to see what we come up with. Now let's go for my favorite ones. This is too strong and could wash the whole effect that we have painted. We want something like this, so tiny. So let's go for color, change the roughness a bit, and let's pick something in between, okay? Alright. And try to do other colors as well. And this is nothing, and nothing as well. And this one can give it a good sand effect. It's highlighting these parts and I'm really loving it. So let's go and try to paint a color that is a bit darker. Okay, let's come down a bit, and this one really gives it contrast. So let's pick up a darker color, and overall I need to make the effect a bit stronger. First, let's give it contrast. No, let's just grow the effect. No, let's make it down a bit, and let's bring this up on top of these. It's a bit better. It washes. Sometimes we have a less noisier area that is better. So I'm putting these down the bottom of that. So let's go and create other ones as well. This one is nothing, and these sand ones are great really. So let's make this less stronger, just a bit on some random areas. Okay, it's all right. And now for the color, let's pick one of these darker ones as well. I feel like a bit brownish like this would give a good amount of color variation into that. Okay, let's continue to add the smart masks in. No, this one is too strong. And this one is good for adding a bit of color variation that is big. Okay, when the sand gets a bit of moisture, it gets the colors to a color something like this. Okay, let's add a bit of height and make the height 0. No, let's leave it like this. Okay, and for the roughness, let's add a bit of roughness into it because the moisture isn't so rough. Something like this is alright. And now let's give the height and make the height 0. Or no, let's disable the height completely. Okay, now let's do some last minute touches. No, absolutely not. And for the sand part, these occlusions and sands work the best. Okay, now let's give this a dark color. Okay, something like this. But let's bring the color down a bit. We really do not want that to be so huge. So overall, I feel like we have done what we should have done. So let's select this, select all of them, and we want to group them together. So let's hit Ctrl and G, and it creates a folder and all of them go in. So I'm going to call this sand. Okay, now let's right click on it and create a smart material, and it's going to take what we have created and turn it into a smart material which we can use on other parts as well. So let's see, let's hide this one, and I'm going to save first. And since this one is too heavy, I'm going to export the textures one by one. Okay, let's go for export textures, and as always give the direction to export to, and for the template I'm going to use the one that we created. It's this normal packed OpenGL. Okay, for resolution, I'm going to make this one 4K because it's a huge mesh, 8 by 8, and we're going to get the best result out of it. So I'm going to disable all of them, but this one. Okay, and now we are ready to export. And this is the result that we are getting. This one is for normal, this one for ARM, and this one the base color. And I'm going to delete this from here so that the file doesn't get too heavy. So let's move on for this one and assign a smart material to that. And the material is already set up and we need to do some manipulations if needed. Okay, it's already looking good. Okay, it's alright. And now let's export this one as well. I'm going to select it and the resolution to 4K, OpenGL, and export. And done, and let's delete this one and go for the next one. So this one needs to be smaller, but let's assign it to see what happens. Okay, a great piece of sand that we can add there. Okay, for this one, I'm going to export it 2K. So let's select this one because we're exporting this. And delete it from here. And this one. Okay, this one is looking alright as well. Very good smart material we created. So I'm happy with it. Okay, I'm exporting this one 2K as well. Just select what you want to export and it gets exported. And delete on this. But some of them might need further manipulations. And this is not one of them. This easily can get the same smart material. Okay, this one is alright as well. Let's export it on 2K. And delete. And the good thing about using one smart material is that we get consistency all across. All of them are going to belong to the same area. And this one might need a bit further manipulation. So let's see what we get in here. Okay, it's alright, but it's obvious that we need to give some information to these stone areas as well. So let's create another folder and call this one a stone pebbles. And we're going to use the materials that Unreal Engine has to offer. We're going to use these procedural materials, okay? Now this one, but we need to tile it more to match the stones. Okay, this one is alright, and now let's give this one instead the folder, the mask. Okay, now let's use some of these smart masks because these will give us better results. So let's go for something like these edges, and it's going to select these ones for us. And right now it's doing a good job. Let me, if I can manipulate it more, because it's using the curvature map, and these ones are really high in curvature map as well. Okay, now it's doing a lot better. Let's bring the contrast down, but we really do not want to select these areas. So let's slightly come down. And let's create another fill layer and use one of the bake maps that belongs to this one. So this is 2x2 and 2x2 underline 0, 2. So these masks belong to here. So let's see which one of them we can use. So let's bring the curvature map. Let's visit this. We need to separate these areas. Let's add a levels. And we need to separate the data. We need to remove it from these parts and only have it on these. So let's hide it from here and bring this one up. And now let's go. Okay, we've done a good selection. But this one, instead of setting it to normal, let me set it to linear dodge so that it adds to the mask beneath it. And now this is the mask that we're getting there. Okay, and these ones are getting selected and it's not a problem really. It's too noisy and these ones won't get too much attention. So let's now add the materials. On this one, I'm going to make the color a bit darker. Let's go for luminosity and make it a bit darker. Okay, now let's give it a bit of color variation as well. Let's go to materials and try to pick one of these concrete ones. Now this one really looks like the one beneath it. Okay, this one. And now let's add a black mask, and on this one I'm going to use a random procedural so that it's randomly selecting between the two and not using the mesh data. So let's use one of these grunge maps that has a lot of value jumps. For example, this one. Okay, let's go before and after. This one is better. So now I'm going to select this as stone pebbles as well and make it a smart material as well. This is sand and this is a stone. Alphabetically they are close to each other and we can find them easily. So this is the stone pebble and let's see, this is the sand. Okay, alright. I'm happy with this and I'm going to export this one as well. But let's see, some of them have stones as well. For example, this one. So let's care about this one as well. So let's see what is in between. This is that. We really do not need it. And now I'm going to again select what we have created here. Select all of it and bring it here. Or let's use the smart materials. We first bring up the sand and then bring up the stone pebbles on top of that to select the sands. And this is like a bit of decoloration and I do not want it. So let's go to mask and start to manipulate the mask. Okay, this one is in some extent doing alright. We need to just get rid of this. Okay, alright. This one is a lot better. And there's one more with the sand. Yeah, this one is also with that one. So let me again select all of this and bring it here as well and paste them. Okay, now we are getting the effect there as well. This is 8x8 and 8x8 too, and I'm going to export these three together. Just have the names and I'm going to export them 2K. So we're going to export beach 2x2 underline 2, beach 4x4, 2 and 3. Okay, this one and this one. Okay, we have 12 textures to be exported, and I'm going to export them using the same one and at 2K. Okay, export, and this is what we're getting so far. Okay, just some more remaining. Let's delete these ones, and I believe I have this stone to be textured and this one as well, because no, not this one, this one. We have these two to be textured. So let's hide all of these and first take care of this one, which we can take care using the smart material. So let's pick up the sand. Okay, here and done. And later on inside Unreal we can do all sorts of things on this, for example color manipulation and things like that. Okay, I'm going to export this one as 2K as well. Deselect these and only this one. Okay, export. Okay, done. And now we are only left with this one. So let's select the sand and apply it on it. I'm going to do something. So this is the color that we're getting on this. I'm happy with the amount of detail that we are getting on these, but I'm going to do something. I'm selecting this, or let's go in here and beneath the sharp, let's add another layer. I'm adding beneath the sharp so that it gets affected by sharpen as well. So let's name this HSL, and I'm going to make it pass through. So remember that I did a layer, not a fill layer. It's a normal layer. So let's go add a filter and try to add the human saturation. And I'm going to bring this and make it something like the color of the stone. Okay, for the hue, I want to make it something like real stone. For example, adding a bit of whiteness, and let's bring the saturation down also. Okay, this one is doing good as base. Or let me bring this one, let me cut the layer and bring it here. No, let's do another thing. Bring the hue saturation down and delete the hue saturation. Instead, bring another layer, filter, and bring the contrast and luminosity. Just make the contrast and luminosity stronger or weaker if you will. Luminosity down and contrast up. Or bring the contrast down so that it becomes a bit more natural. Okay, this one is more towards the color that we know from the stone. So let's bring this one to the levels and let's check before and after. I might bring the saturation down a bit. Okay, something like this is pretty good, and this is really the color from the stone. And let's give it a bit of more contrast to make it more lively. Okay, this is really fine. Okay, and now we have only this one to export, and I'm going to export this one 2K as well, beach stone, and export. So we are done with this, and we have done the texturing on these, and we have the amount of texture that we need. And this one is the last one that we exported, and you see how much detail they have. Okay, now it has finished, and in the next lesson we're going to tackle the rocks as well. We are going to do the blocky rocks and the layered rocks in the same lesson. And then when done, we export all of them into Unreal Engine and start the kit bashing process. Okay, see you in the next lesson.